Homer's Odyssey, Book 1, translated by George Chapman. The argument. The gods in council sit to call Ulysses from Calypso's thrall, and order their high pleasures thus. Great Pallas to Telemachus in Ithaca her way addressed, and did her heavenly limbs invest in Mentes' likeness, that did reign king of the Taphians, in the main whose rough waves near Leucadia run, advising wise Ulysses' son to seek his father, and address his course to young Tantalides that governed Sparta. Thus much said, she showed she was heaven's martial maid, and vanished from him. Next to this, the banquet of the wooers is. Another argument. Alpha. The deities sit, the man retired, the Ulyssean wit by Pallas fired. The man, O Muse, informed that many a way wound with his wisdom to his wished stay, that wandered wondrous far when he the town of sacred Troy had sacked and shivered down, the cities of a world of nations with all their manners, minds, and fashions, he saw and knew. At sea felt many woes, much care sustained, to save from overthrows himself and friends in their retreat for home. But so their fates he could not overcome, though much he thirsted it. O men unwise, they perished by their own impieties, that in their hunger's rapine would not shun the oxen of the lofty going sun, who therefore from their eyes the day bereft of safe return. These acts, in some part left, tell us, as others, deified seed of Jove. Now, all the rest that austere death outstrove at Troy's long siege at home safe anchored are, free from the malice both of sea and war. Only Ulysses is denied access to wife and home. The grace of goddesses, the reverend nymph Calypso, did detain him in her caves, past all the race of men, inflamed to make him her loved lord and spouse. And when the gods had destined that his house, which Ithaca on her rough bosom bears, the point of time wrought out by ambient years, should be his haven, contention still extends her envy to him, even amongst his friends. All gods took pity on him. Only he that girds earth in the cincture of the sea, divine Ulysses ever did envy, and made the fixed port of his birth to fly. But he himself solemnized a retreat to the Ethiops, far dissundered in their seat, in two parts parted at the sun's descent, and underneath his golden orient, the first and last of men, to enjoy their feast of bulls and lambs in hecatombs addressed, at which he sat, given over to delight. The other gods, in heaven's supremest height, were all in council met, to whom began the mighty Father both of God and man discourse, inducing matter that inclined to wise Ulysses, calling to his mind faultful Aegisthus, who to death was done by young Orestes, Agamemnon's son. His memory to the immortals then moved Jove thus deeply. Oh, how falsely men accuse us gods as authors of their ill, when by the bane of their own bad lives instill, they suffer all the miseries of their states past our inflictions and beyond their fates. And now Aegisthus, past his fate, did wed the wife of Agamemnon, and in dread to suffer death himself, to shun his ill, incurred it by the loose bent of his will, in slaughtering Atrides in retreat, which we foretold him would so hardly set to his murderous purpose, sending Mercury that slaughtered Argus, our considerate spy, to give him this charge. Do not wed his wife, nor murder him, for thou shalt buy his life with ransom of thine own, imposed on thee by his Orestes, when in him shall be Atrides' self renewed. But the prime of youth's spring put abroad, in thirst to climb his haughty father's throne by his high acts. These words of Hermes wrought not into facts Aegisthus' powers. Good counsel he despised, and to that good his illness sacrificed. Pallas, whose eyes did sparkle like the sky, answered, O sire, supreme of deities, Aegisthus passed his fate, and had desert to warrant our infliction, and convert may all the pains such impious men inflict on innocent sufferers to revenge as strict their own hearts eating. But that Ithacus, thus never meriting, should suffer thus, I deeply suffer. His more pious mind divides him from these fortunes, Though unkind is piety to him, giving him a fate more suffering than the most unfortunate, so long kept friendless in a sea-girt soil, where the sea's navel is a sylvan isle, in which the goddess dwells that doth derive her birth from Atlas, who of all alive the motion and the fashion doth commend, with his wise mind, whose forces understand the inmost deeps and gulfs of all the seas, who, for his skill of things superior, stays the two steep columns that prop earth and heaven. His daughter 'tis, who holds this homeless driven, still mourning with her, evermore profuse of soft and winning speeches that abuse and make so languishingly, and possessed with so remiss a mind, her loved guest. Manage the action of his way for home, where he, though in affection overcome, in judgment yet more longs to show his hopes. His country's smoke leap from her chimney tops, and death asks in her arms. Yet never shall thy loved heart be converted on his thrall, austere Olympius. Did not ever he in ample Troy thy altars gratify, and Grecian's fleet make in thy offerings swim? O Jove, why still then burns thy wrath to him? The cloud assembler answered, What words fly, bold daughter, from thy pail of ivory, as if ever I could cast from my care divine Ulysses, who exceeds so far all men in wisdom, and so oft hath given to all the mortals enthroned in ample heaven so great and sacred gifts. But his decrees that holds the earth in which his with his nimble knees stand to Ulysses' longing so extreme, for taking from the god-foe Polypheme his only eye, a cyclop that excelled all other cyclops, with whose burden swelled the nymph Toosa, the divine increase of Phorcys' seed, a great god of the seas. She mixed with Neptune in his hollow caves, and bore this cyclop to that god of waves, for whose lost eye the earth-shaker did not kill erring Ulysses, but reserves him still in life for more death. But use we our powers, and round about us cast these cares of ours, all to discover how we may prefer his wished retreat, and Neptune make forbear his stern eye to him, since no god can, in spite of all, prevail but 'gainst a man. To this answer made the grey-eyed maid. Supreme of rulers, since so well apaid the blessed gods are all then, now in thee, to limit wise Ulysses' misery, and that you speak as you refer to me prescription for the means, in this sort be their sacred order. Let us now address, with utmost speed, our swift Argicides, to tell the nymph that bears the golden tress in the isle Ogygia, that 'tis our will she should not stay our loved Ulysses still, but suffer his return. And then will I to Ithaca to make his son apply his sire's inquest the more, infusing force into his soul to summon the concourse of curled-head Greeks to counsel, and deter each wooer that hath been the slaughterer of his fat sheep and his crooked-headed beeves, from more wrong to his mother, and their leaves taken such term as fit deserts so great. To Ithaca then, and Pylos, where doth beat bright Amathus, the flood, an epithet to all that kingdom, my advice shall send the spirit-advanced prince to the pious end of seeking his lost father, if he may receive report from fame where rests his stay, and make beside his own successive worth known to the world, and set in action forth. This said, her winged shoes to her feet she tied, formed all of gold, and all eternified, that on the round earth, or the sea sustained, her ravaged substance swift as gusts of wind. Then took she her strong lance with steel made keen, great, massy, active, that whole hosts of men, though all heroes, conquers, if her ire their wrongs inflame, backed by so great a sire. Down from Olympus' top she headlong dived, and swift as thought in Ithaca arrived, close at Ulysses' gates, in whose first court she made her stand, and from her breast support leaned on her iron lance, her form impressed with Mente's likeness, come as being a guest. There found she proud wooers that were then set on those ox hides that they themselves had slain before the gates, and all at dice were playing. To them all the heralds, and the rest obeying, filled wine and water. Some, still as they played, and some, for solemn supper state, purveyed with porous sponges, cleansing tables served, with much rich feast, of which to all they curved.